Hey, this is Joe Gilder from HomeStudioCorner.com. Today I want to talk about the many sounds of a snare drum. Now, when you're recording drums, it's important to make sure that you have a good sounding snare, and if the drummer has multiple snares to choose from, then yeah, it's definitely good to have him pick the right snare for the song so you get the best sound for the song. And also mic placement and all that stuff is really important. But after the fact, during mixing, you can actually manipulate a snare to sound wildly different depending on the song. So if you feel like you're stuck with one specific snare sound on a recording, you can probably do a few of these tricks I'm going to show you and pretty dramatically change it. So first up, here's the dry snare sound. All right, first up, the first change I did was what I call the beef snare. So with this, I use this EQ, the Renaissance EQ from Waves, and the Renaissance compressor. And I'll just zoom in and let you take a look at the settings as I hit play. So this is the beefy sound. It's got a nice, thick sound to it. I boosted a little bit down at around 75 hertz. Did a big cut at 417 to get rid of some of the boxiness and the ringiness, and then a little bit of a cut up here to make it a little less bright. Then with the compressor, I'm using a fairly slow attack and a middle-of-the-road release so that it has a nice punch to it. And you end up with this. When compared to the original snare, and now the beefy one. So some songs just call for that big, beefy snare. Okay, up next we have what I call the Snappy Snare. Let's take a look at that real quick. Let's just take a listen while I pull up the plugins. Now this might be a snare sound you get for a more, maybe a pop type of song or something where you don't need that big, thick snare. You want a nice, snappy one. So for this one, I put the compressor first. Really fast attack, really squashing it, and a long release so that we're kind of killing a lot of that sustain of the drum and just getting the snap. For EQ, I got rid of a lot of mid-range, took that ring out, and boosted up around, what is that, about 5.8K or so. Ended up with this sound. So there's just not really any low end, lots of snap, lots of crack to it, but not a lot of beef. As opposed to our beef track, a lot different. Same snare part. The third part is what I'm going to call the ringy part. And this is more of, if you're going for kind of that vibey, almost like some of those reggae songs where the snare really rings out, this is just kind of taking advantage of that. So here's that sound. So for this one, it's kind of in between both. We're boosting that ringing frequency instead of cutting it. We're just kind of taking advantage of that, and we're rolling off a lot of the low end. And then for the compressor, we're doing a fairly fast attack and release. Quick release here is going to help with the sustain, so you hear that ring out a little bit more. It's not as something I use as much. I use the beef and the snap a lot more than I do the ring, but it's good to know how to get there if you need to. So I'll go through the four one more time. Here's the dry sound. Here's the beef. Here's the snap. And here's the ring. Lots of different sounds, one snare drum. Try it out next time you're mixing a drum track. See what you can come up with.